Moscow is the venue for the fourth round of the Blancpain Sprint Series, a spectacular city and hopefully some spectacular action. But before we get underway, let's look back at the last round in Zolder. At the start of the race, it was a good start from Laurens Vanthoor, but the second place Rinaldi Ferrari was sent spinning out of the race. A real shame for the 333 pairing of Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler. Meanwhile, there was frantic action on the opening lap. The 73 Nissan being pushed over the curbs on the exit of the first chicane, but Vanthoor and Freins were away at the front, while Stefan Ortelli ran wide coming down into the Villeneuve chicane. Ortelli was continuing his mission, managing to pass the 55 Attempto Racing McLaren of Philip Vlasic. Meanwhile, battles were raging over fourth position. The Brazilian BMW pairing of Valdeno Brito and Attila Abreu losing out and then losing more time in the pit stops with a slow driver change. The 77 car came out behind their teammates in the 0 car. There was also a change as Nicky Meyer-Melnoff managed to get out just in front of the 83 HDP Bentley. Enzo Ede ended his race at turn 3 after taking over from Christopher Mies. And then there was an enthralling battle over 11th position. Anders Fjordbach losing out to the 54 Attempto Racing McLaren on the run down into turn 1. Fjordbach tried to stay with him, but it was the position for the McLaren. The bright yellow Mercedes of Bernd Schneider watching on as he won the Pro-Am class. But winning the Pro class was Laurens Vanthoor and Robin Freins. Another commanding performance from the WRT Audi pair, moving them 27 points clear at the top of the championship. Max Buch and Vincent Abril came across the line in second, and it was third and fourth home for the Brazilian BMWs. Delight for Vanthoor and Freins, the top step of the podium and the top of the championship. Now we're here in Moscow for round 4, and before the event got underway, there was a gathering of GT cars around the famous Red Square. The drivers are out in force, the fans out in force as well, ahead of a superb weekend of racing in Russia's capital. BMW Team Brazil are enjoying their best year in the championship so far. The 77 car has been on the podium in all but 1 races so far this season. Attila Abreu and his teammate Valdeno Brito will be hoping to repeat that success here in Moscow. In the 0 car, things haven't been quite as good for Caca Bueno and Sergio Jimenez.
We have a constant good results for the team in both cars, so we are very happy, and we reach almost the podium 3 times. We finished 4th, so I believe now it will be our time.
Over at WRT, it wasn't a particularly strong weekend for Christopher Mies and Enzo Ede. In Zolder, Mies had the pace, but Enzo Ede spun the car into the gravel trap when he took over. But in the number 1 car, it was a different story. Robin Freins and Laurens Vanthoor have won every race that they've entered so far this season, save for Nogaro, where they crashed out in qualifying. And Vanthoor's hoping for more of the same this weekend.
Well, obviously we're here to continue our winning streak. But in the end, the goal for myself, Robin, and the team and Audi is to win the championship. And in order to do that, you have to score points every race. So obviously we want to win firstly, but the main goal is to take points for the championship. So if you can achieve 2 podiums this weekend, would be already a good thing. Obviously we'll try to go for the win.
Fresh off the back of their victory in the Paul Ricard endurance race, RJN are entering this weekend here in Moscow as well. Nick Hammond is one of the drivers, and alongside him is home favourite Mark Szulzicki.
I think it's really big present from Nissan for me. I always saying I would like to race in my home in Russia. I'm looking forward for good results in overall, but because there is a lot of good teams and cars and drivers, so it will be a pleasure to be in the top.
Attempto Racing have brought 1 McLaren and 1 Porsche this weekend. The Porsche a new entry for Ivan Samarin, the Russian, and Sergei Chokhanov, the Ukrainian. Where in the 55 McLaren, as ever, it's Kevin Estra and Rob Bell looking to be at the front.
We'll get there first thing tomorrow and do a track walk. And I see there's a couple of quite long straights, certainly one, so we're going to have opportunities to overtake. And yeah, until I get there and have a drive around, then I'll not know exactly, but I think it could suit our car. And we're aiming, obviously, to come here and win, you know, first time in Moscow. I have to say we're here in the city centre, which is fantastic. Brilliant place to be, and we'll learn more obviously tomorrow.
At the GT Russian team, it's Marco Asma and Alexei Vasiliev once again reunited in the 71 Mercedes SLS. They'll be looking for another Pro-Am victory, but they'll have a tough challenge from within their own team. Bernd Schneider can't make it this weekend, so it's Christoph Buschu who will be partnering Alexei Karachev in the number 70 GT Russian Mercedes SLS.
It's very important for me because it's our homeland, it's in Moscow. It's very nice, so many fans here, and we feel their support of our Russian team, and we will try to do the best what we can do on our home racetrack, Moscow Raceway.
At HDP Bentley, Jules Simkowiak has his third teammate of the season. He's being joined by Max van Splunteren, son of former GT racer Paul van Splunteren. The all-Dutch pairing will be looking for a strong result this weekend, and the same is true of the 84 HDP Bentley, Vincent Abril and Maximilian Buch.
I think we are in a good position with P3 now in the championship, so I think when we can have a good weekend here, the rest of the season should be fine. For sure you cannot say for sure that you can win a race, but we will aim for it and hopefully can connect to the performance we had in Zolder.
After being replaced by Peter Cox for a one-off round last time in Zolder, Nick Katzberg returns to the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini. As ever, he will be partnered by Albert von Turnentaxis, who can't wait to get racing here in Russia.
I'm very excited. It's first time for me, first time in Russia, first time in Moscow, first time on the track here, so don't quite know what to expect. But from what I've seen, it's a track that's not too bad for us, and yeah, we hope to make a good result this weekend finally.
An unlucky weekend in Zolder meant that the 333 Rinaldi Racing Ferrari got punted out at turn 1. They've had the pace all season, and maybe this weekend we'll see them on the top step. As ever, it's Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler.
It's really nice to be here in Moscow, especially with our friends, with Russian guys, and it's my first time here, and tomorrow we will see the track. It's my first time as well, so I hope we have a good car here and we can fight for a podium again. I think the Ferrari will be good on this racetrack. The last race weekend we were fast everywhere, so actually we will be here quick as well.
The qualifying race here at Moscow Raceway is about to get underway. It's round 4 of this 2015 Blancpain Sprint Series season, and 1 hour of action is imminent. My name is Jack Nichols. Alongside me in the commentary box in the main grandstand overlooking the start-finish straight in the pits is John Watson. The air temperature for a hot and exhausting race, John.
It will be certainly hot, and I suspect for one particular driver it will be very exhausting indeed, because with great regret we have Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff, who would be sharing the Phoenix Audi with Marcus Winkelhock, get my head around it. He has had, for family reasons, to return home. So Marcus Winkelhock will be doing not just this sprint race on his own, he'll be doing the main race later in the afternoon. So he's going to have his work cut out, and a part of which is maintaining his stamina levels, keeping his fluid levels high. And of course, normally cars that run in the Blancpain Sprint do not carry a water bottle or something to give you refreshment. So a tough afternoon for Marcus Winkelhock on the front row of the grid in particular.
Absolutely, he is alongside Nick Katzberg on the front row, the 88. Little segue down the grid there, right at the back. We've got Christoph Buschu and Nick Hammond, and it is Buschu who will start in 18th position and last in the GT Russian car. The other one is in 13th place. We'll take you through the grid in more detail when the formation lap gets underway, which it is due to do so almost imminently. And this tight and twisty Moscow Raceway circuit is one that the drivers seem to enjoy. It is a challenge for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the challenge is really that a lot of the corners are double apex corners, but there are a lot of really subtle little just difficulties in the corner, and you think you're just about at the part of the corner where you can release the car, and all of a sudden you have to pinch it back to get it into the next apex. So it makes the car setup extremely difficult, and most of the driver team combinations over the Friday free practice sessions and even this morning in qualifying, not really happy or satisfied with the balance on the car they've gotten. Ordinarily, cars, particularly looking at someone like Laurens van Voor in the #1 Audi, which ordinarily is the de facto car driver combination, they were struggling big time to get that balance.
Here's a look at the grid then, ahead of this 1 hour race. On pole position, it's Nick Katzberg in the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini. Really strong lap from him, the only man in the 36s. Marcus Winkelhock is alongside him on the front row, and he's going to be competing in the whole race by himself. Third on the grid, Norbert Siedler in the 333 Rinaldi Ferrari with Kevin Estre alongside. Fourth on the grid in the Attempto Racing McLaren. Then it's Laurens van Voor, championship leaders, starting in 5th place ahead of their WRT teammate Christopher Mies. Jules Simkowiak starts in 7th place ahead of Maxi Buch in 8th, so it's 2x2 for WRT and HTP. Then it's Stefan Ortelli and Sergio Jimenez completing the top 10. The Brazilian BMW guys really disappointed with their performance. Felipe Salaquada in the ISR Audi there in 11th place, just ahead of Frank Stippler, who had an off on his quick qualifying lap. Marco Asma will start 13th ahead of Craig Dolby in the Nissan. The Nissan not really suited to this track. Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito, second place men in the championship, starting in 15th position just in front of Chokhanov. And then Nick Hammond and Mark Szolzicki making their first appearance of the season in front of Christoph Bouchou and Alexei Karachev. So the cars weave their way down the back straight, trying to get as much tyre temperature as possible. It's Nick Katzberg on pole, but that fast-starting Ferrari is going to be one to watch. They're quick in a straight line.
Yeah, a good performance from the Ferrari yet again, still winning to get the result that would fulfill the potential of the car, but really the car that's been the class of the field so far here this weekend, to me, has been the Lamborghini with Nicky Katzberg on board, and he ought to be able to make full advantage of his pole position there. His co-driver, Albert von Tunen-Tax, is very tense, knowing that he may take over the leading car.
Through the final corner they come, getting ready to get this 1 hour qualifying race underway. The main race is coming up today as well, but first of all, we go racing for qualifying. Away they go, the cars rumble down towards the first corner. It is a good start from the Ferrari. A look to the inside, a bit of contact on the run into turn 1, but it's Katzberg who holds the lead, and the Ferrari's up into second place. Marcus Winkelhock's got shuffled back up into third, has gone the 55 McLaren of Kevin Estre, so that's a good start from him. Behind then is Winkelhock, but Nick Katzberg it is who's got the best start. Winkelhock shuffled down to 4th position then at the start, and trouble for the championship leaders. Van Voor and Freitz going slowly at the back of the field. Did they get involved in the contact in that opening lap? We're on board with Maximilian Buch, but a huge moment here.
Is that a puncture? That thing is right front. Yeah, everybody going into turn 1 did the normal thing. They tried to filter in to the inside line, and you can't get 18 cars into the space of one. We assume that is the problem. We wait and see when that car goes back into the pit lane. But what a poor start. What a disappointment for the #1 Audi.
They're going to have to start at the back of the grid for the main race now. So Robin Freitz and Laurens van Voor have won every single race that they've entered so far this season. And this is going to be the first time this season that they haven't won. So Nick Katzberg it is who leads. Second place is the Rinaldi Ferrari.
But you've got to keep an eye on Kevin Estre and the McLaren. He is going to try and use everything he's got. The straight line speed of the McLaren. Can he get a 2? He's not close enough to the tail of the Ferrari as they come down to this straight, the longest straight on the circuit for the very first time.
There's the Nissan having a little bit of a move at the back. Nick Hammond trying to make up a position, but as they come through to complete lap 1, there's a dive bomb through. There goes Felipe Salaquada.
And he loses it, runs wide on the exit.
So that's him battling with the Brazilian BMW as they stream across the line, and that is Winkelhock losing out to Maximilian Buch. So Max Buch goes through to take that place away from Marcus Winkelhock.
And just coming out of turn 1, Kevin Estre ran wide, got the right rear of the McLaren up on the grass, on the dirt, kicked it up in the air. No problem. But we've seen Kevin Estre here this morning, absolutely as you would expect, on the limit of the McLaren. In fact, so ended up backing it into the wall down at the far end of the circuit.
Yep, and not too much damage was done to the back of the McLaren, so it's good to see them still out there. But it's Nick Katzberg who's leading the way and is starting to sprint clear now of Norbert Siedler in second position. And they're all getting clear of Maxi Buch in 4th place. Winkelhock not having the race pace at the moment that his qualifying suggested.
Well, I think going into turn 1, he sort of got swamped because he was on the right-hand side of the track going into the left-hand corner, and everybody starting behind the front row of the grid just dived into the inside, and I suspect that Winkelhock just found there was no bit of racetrack he thought was going to be his.
So there's our top three. Then there's a gap back to Max Buch in 4th position. What an opportunity this is for these drivers to try and haul themselves back into title contention with the retirement of the number 1 WRT out. Well, not retirement, but they've just made it back to the pits now, Laurence Van Thorp.
That's a right rear. You can see there's virtually nothing, and there's a small amount of damage to the rear bodywork. Now, whether they put another tyre on, let them go out, and let both drivers go out and cycle through, or whether they call it a day, that will be a call for the WRT team. But what disappointment, having had a disappointing qualifying. Ordinarily, that's the car we would expect to see on the front row of the grid, but it started on the 3rd row of the grid.
Yep, and when you start that far back, you're going to get involved in the troubles. This is a look at Marcus Winkelhock in 5th position in the number 6 Phoenix Audi, under a lot of pressure from Jules Simkowiak behind in the Bentley, as they now they've got to try and get the wheel off, which they managed to do, and then check for damage.
Yeah, everything gets so hot when you're coming in those situations. So the wheel finally removed. They'll put another check around the hub area to make sure there isn't any further damage. And it looks like they will send that car out and let it complete some more laps. They may not do the entire distance, but they just want to make sure that everything else is undamaged, and therefore they'll get a chance to find that out as the car is off the jacks. And well, a bit of a disappointment, not a bit of a huge disappointment for Laurence Van Thorp. The good news is he's got a clear track. He hasn't got to worry about anybody else.
Yeah, and now they've just got to go out there, keep. So I think they're only a lap down. So if we get a couple more retirements, then that's crucial positions on the grid for the main race that's coming up a little later. So it's Nick Katzberg who's got the start and has got away, but his teammate Albert von Turnen Taxis. It'll be very interesting to see what kind of pace Albert has when he takes over. In general, slower than Nick Katzberg. Katzberg is very much the professional in the car, but that's not to say Albert is an amateur, but he's just not quite Nick Katzberg. But Nick was telling me that Albert's looking pretty good this weekend, and is really dialed into this racetrack.
Absolutely, and I watched him at Brands Hatch some weeks ago now, and again I thought that there's a good performance. There's a driver who has made progress in his own level of performance, and as you say, Nicky Katzberg, an outstanding professional GT race driver, but he's now getting an increasingly improving Albert von Turnen Taxis to back him up.
Yep. And it's Katzberg who has built up now a 1.8 second advantage over Norbert Siedler up at the front. Jules Simkowiak goes to the inside, hits Winkelhock. They're both off, and that allows the number 2 Audi of Christopher Mies to come through, and the Brazilian BMW of Sergio Jimenez as well. And that was Simkowiak doing the right thing, but losing the back of the car.
He got the position, and whether just the back end gave up or whether it was a combination of getting power on, but the back just suddenly snapped out and gave a hip and shoulder to the Audi. Both cars went off, and of course both cars lost, I think, 2 to 3 positions as a consequence.
So that means Simkowiak did manage to get past. Here he goes up the inside. That was all fine, but just the back end.
It was already going as they were sort of midway through the corner, and inevitably Simkowiak was going to just run wide as the correction came in. And of course Audi sitting there doing nothing wrong in clear air became just nothing more than a snooker ball being popped into the pocket, but it was certainly the runoff. Fortunately, the runoff here was a tarmac runoff. Both cars can continue, but a disappointment.
Yep. So there's at the back of the field there, Nick Hammond. So that means Christopher Mies is now up into 5th position at the end of all that. It's 6th for Jimenez, and it's 7th for Simkowiak, and it's 8th for Marcus Winkelhock. Race lead is up to 2.3 seconds. Nick Katzberg up at the front, and the Bentley is tucked right up beneath the rear wing now of that Brazilian BMW of Sergio Jimenez as they stream out across the line once more. And yeah, really strong lap that one from Nick Katzberg. Was half a second quicker than the Rinaldi Ferrari behind him.
Yeah, because he's got the benefit of running at the front, so he's got the clear track, the clear air, and he doesn't need to push too hard too early because he'll want to go as deep, I suspect, into his pit stop window stop before he hands back to Albert von Turnen Taxis. And as long as he's got no traffic, no lap traffic coming into his vision, then he's got, he's in the pound seat for the remainder of his stint.
So the next battle is going to be Frank Stippler against Marcus Winkelhock. Stefan Ortelli's lost out in the start there as well. He started in 9th place, now he's down to 11th. So it's a good start from Stippler from 12th up to 9th, and he's now going to try and put pressure on the 8th place Phoenix Audi that you can see there.
Yeah, Stefan Ortelli said after qualifying that they've been trying to dial this car in, and whatever they do, they haven't found the performance in the car that they normally are able to access. So he's gone through all the tires that he had, the options he had. As the Nissan at the tail of the field runs right out. Again, Nissan performance here, not so much to do with the car performance. This was never going to be a track that suited them, but they've also had a penalty, a BOP penalty, for being so outrageously good in Paul Ricard in the 6-hour event there a couple of weekends ago.
So there's our 4th place car, Maximilian Buch in the HTP Bentley. And what's he doing with regards to Kevin Estre in front? He was 0.2 of a second quicker on that last lap, brought the gap between them down to just about 2 seconds, or just over 2 seconds. And then we got this long queue that's all forming up behind Marcus Winkelhock. So Winkelhock, who qualified second, we're expecting him, I mean, I'd have put my money on him winning the race, to be perfectly honest with you, but he's dropping back now into 8th position and holding up the cars behind as well.
I mean, just briefly, why would you put your money on it?
Well, I thought he had a good shot from second on the grid.
Well, I shall revise my judgment of that. I think that it was going to be always difficult for anybody driving single-handed, although having said that, you're not having to give over to your teammate who may in some cases be better or in some cases poorer than you. It was always going to be a difficult race. I think the Audis, although they got a good time, Marcus Winkelhock, great job. I think they've struggled a little bit in general performance, and the Lamborghinis always look the quicker car of the two over the qualifying and, well, most of the practice sessions that I got to see.
So Jules Simkowiak is the man on a mission at the moment. This is the 73 car, which is currently in the hands of Craig Dolby. Dolby didn't get it hooked up in qualifying. His teammate Sean Walkinshaw actually went quicker than Dolby in the first part of qualifying by 0.4 of a second. So the pace is there in that MRS Nissan. They just need to unlock it. And you can see Simkowiak has dropped back a little bit from the back of that yellow BMW in front.
Well, he's trailing a bit of the rear bodywork. You can see that was the consequence of the hip and shoulder that he gave to the Audi. There's the Nissan coming in, and that's not a pit stop for driver change. That's an issue, whether it's tyres or whether it's just another one we aren't able to bring you right now. But disappointing performance from the Nissan GT Academy team. Bob Neville runs that team as everybody streams out of the first part of turn 1 and runs right out to the very edge of the racetrack. Drivers have been reminded to respect track limits here. It is easy to exceed them. There's the Nissan in the pits.
Yep, Nick Hammond taking the car back into the pit lane. Hopefully we'll see that car back out again before the end of the race. But this is the battle between, well, the battle more is between Salakot, and Attila Abreu. There's our race leader, then the 2nd place Ferrari, then the 3rd place McLaren, then the 4th place Bentley. And what's going on here for the Nissan?
Well, I don't know whether they're going to change wheels, tyres, or they're going to put the dollies under it and push it back into the garage. There's not a lot of urgency going on, so it looks to me like it may be a trip into the garage, and that's going to be the end of the race for Nick Hammond.
So we think it might have been a little bit smoky as it came into the pits, so we'll try and get to the bottom of that after the race. But there's our race leader, Nick Katzberg, turning into the final corner again. And this is a really strong performance from the Dutchman, who said that he's been doing the World Touring Car Championship and raced in it last weekend. Well, actually, let's watch this battle first, because Attila Abreu is really putting the Audi of Philippe Salaquada under pressure, side by side, coming down into the final turn. That's Frank Stippler, but it is Attila Abreu who's managed to get the cutback and is going to have the inside line now on the run down. It darts back to the inside, though, Philippe Salaquada. Abreu covers the inside line briefly as Stippler comes into the first corner. And it is Attila Abreu who's managed to get through then. So good work from him, up into 9th position. Sorry, 10th position now. And it worked well to set that one up at the final corner.
Oh yeah, basically I think the BMW is quicker in a lap than the Audi is. But of course, being quicker and getting a pass, a competitive car or a car you're racing against, is an entirely different matter, especially on a track with, it's a sinuous track, and there are not really many viable opportunities to get a clean pass, to get alongside somebody and make that pass. Well, there's the Nissan. The hood is off the car, and Bob Neville's team are going to have a look at it. But again, as I say, not a huge amount of urgency. Nicky Katzberg has got a comfortable lead, but he's being kept honest. He's not really able to get away from the Ferrari, and I mean, just a few seconds behind, you got the McLaren of Kevin Estre, and it's not been able to, let's say, slipstream as closely as I might have anticipated it could have done of the Ferrari, but is in a solid third position.
And this is the battle between Simkowiak and Jimenez over 6th position. Simkowiak currently leading the Silver Cup as well as they come down the long back straight. Winkelhock looked like he was under pressure from Stippler. Stippler's done his personal best in the first and second sectors, but actually he's not quite close enough. We go on board with Sergio Jimenez then. The 31-year-old from Sao Paulo. Lewis Hamilton's teammate in Formula Renault back in the day. And he's now plying his trade in the Blancpain GT Series as well as the Brazilian V8 Stock Car Championship.
Yeah, it's a very healthy championship back in Brazil, and for those that really don't make it to the higher echelons of motorsport, a domestic championship that's both financially viable as well as extremely competitive is a very attractive, and also the sun shines a lot, which makes, I think, a lot of difference. Here in Russia today, we've got a gorgeous day. There's a wind from the north, but it is absolutely stunning. So you'd expect the Brazilians to be on the balls of their feet.
45 minutes to go, then 10 minutes before the pit stop window opens. And Simkowiak is still trying to close down Sergio Jimenez in front of him. Under braking for the two left-handers, taking a different line in there. The Bentley tucks in a lot earlier. Then we've got this battle between Winkelhock and Stippler. The two Audis, one run by Phoenix, one run by WRT, and they're being closed in on pretty rapidly actually by Attila Abreu. He was quicker than them on the last lap by a couple of tenths of a second, and now he's got clear air on this lap.
Yeah, I mean, that's the benefit. He's gotten past the Audi and he's now got that clear air until he joins the tail of the field. And already Nicky Katzberg out of sight as we go back onto the start-finish straight. There is the gap. He just momentarily got it, just under 4 seconds. And Nicky Katzberg got this clear air pretty much also as does the Ferrari. So there's nothing being gained or lost between these two first and second place cars.
Yep. Well, the gap's now up to 4 seconds as there's the Rinaldi team. Vadim Pogai there on the left-hand side, one of the men who's crucial in funding this operation, and what a successful run they're having. Second place at the moment as we go on board with Norbert Siedler through the little chicane that crests and then turns into turn 9.
Again, you're getting this view from the driver. The corners, when you see them from the cameras around the racetrack, do not show the degree of subtlety in, and these are difficult corners. I mean, they put a premium on both the driver and the engineers to get the car to work at all corner speeds all around the racetrack. 14 turns around this circuit.
There is Winkelhock still just holding off Frank Stippler at the moment. Stippler not quite close enough to actually attack. And then Attila Abreu has joined the party. And talking of that Brazilian V8 Stock Car Series, Attila Abreu was actually runner-up in that championship last year. Second to Rubens Barrichello, who won the title. As they head now out onto the back straight again. Max Buch is closing in on Kevin Estre as well in the battle for third. Not massively so, but the gap between them has come down to 1.5 seconds now, where it was just over 2. So that could be something to keep an eye on. Although we've only got 8 minutes before the pit stop window opens.
Well, it'll be interesting to see which teams opt to come in earlier, and I suspect that the top 3 positions will stay out as long as they can, because they're not in well, they haven't shown any indication they're going to be closing down on cars that would be being lapped. So if that is the situation when the pit stop window opens, just keep out there and just continue until you need to come in ultimately to make that tyre and driver change.
This is the battle over 11th place. Felipe Salaquada in the ISR Audi up in front of the WRT Audi of Stefan Otelli, with the blue and white and red GT Russian Mercedes of Marco Asma behind. And there's a little gap back to Craig Dolby and Alexei Kadashev, Christoph Bouchou. This is all over 11th position as the dust is kicked up.
Just interesting, the two Audis, just the difference in line between one coming through the The lead one here was much wider at the apex, and the second of the Audis, Otelli, very much more across the rumble strips to try and shorten the corner as much as possible.
There's the Stefan Riquelme, teammate of Stefan Otelli. Don't think he wants to be on camera there, as he heads off now back in the garage. And this is all about, you do get points for winning this race, but it's all about getting track position for the main race later on today. And we've seen how dramatic the starts can be.
Gap between first and second still hovering just over that 3.5 second. In fact, just come down by 0.2 of a second, but it's almost insignificant. We need to see that kind of progress over the next couple or 3 laps to think that there may be an opportunity for the Ferrari prior to or at the point of pit stops to get onto the tail of the lead Lamborghini that has really never been under threat once it got through and exited turn 1.
No, a really strong drive here from Nick Katzberg. He's going to be handing that car over to Albert von Ternentaxis. And you can see how difficult it is to overtake at this circuit. So if they can have a good pit stop, the Reiter gang, then Albert may be able to hold on. He'll have a lot of pressure from Marco Seefried in the Ferrari behind, as we see James Nash, teammate of Frank Stippler, who's in the middle of this pack here. Winkelhock, Stippler and Attila Abreu.
Well, again, it's the BMW you think is actually the quickest of these 3 cars, but of course finding a way past. At the first half of the lap, there really isn't any opportunity in realistic terms to make a clean and safe overtake. And you're pretty much restricted to either getting a run up into the final turn, or if you're very brave and get a good run off the final turn into turn 1. But again, the run into turn 1 pretty easily defended by everybody. But looking at Maximilian Buch, he has closed down the third phase, McLaren and Cabanestra, and that could become a little bit of an interest before the pit stops.
Yeah, it was 1.5 seconds the gap 2 laps ago. Now it is down to just 0.8 of a second.
0.8 of a second.
So that's one to keep an eye on, that third place squabble. So we've got nice battles brewing throughout the circuit at the moment, as we've got less than 5 minutes to go before the pit stop window opens. Pit stop window open for 10 minutes. And as you say, John, we're not going to see the leaders diving in at the earliest possible opportunity, but you may see, for example,
well, the
Maxi Buch or an Attila Abreu.
I would imagine the 77 car might well come in earlier, assuming that the 2 Audis ahead of them don't drop in at the same time, because if your progress is being, in effect, halted by the pace of the cars in front of you, then use the pit stop to get out of sequence, get out of this battle, and hope that the point where you drop back in is in a part of the racetrack where you can get on with the program and try and make up as much time. And Valdeno Brito, between Abreu and Brito, there's not an awful lot of difference in out-and-out pace.
No, there's Caco Bueno, you just saw in the background there. He's not particularly ready to get out on the track at the moment. But there is the 77 car. You can see how quickly they've caught up, because there are those 3, and the battle we saw them involved with before has disappeared into the background, but disappearing into very much the foreground behind the McLaren is Maximilian Buch, a little nose to the inside. He's in that big 84 Bentley, and he's tucked right up behind Kevin Estre in the Attempto Racing McLaren 650S as they come across the line now. Katzberg leads, Seidler second in the Rinaldi Ferrari, but this is the battle for third.
Well, Max Buch has worked pretty hard to get himself into a position, and although the camera shot it sort of foreshortened the gap between the McLaren and the Bentley, but on the timing and scoring it was 0.8 of a second a couple of laps ago. Now it's what you see, it's half a second, 0.4 of a second. Different parts of the track, the Bentley you could see is able to run the McLaren down. McLaren struggling with understeer to get the nose big time, then he boots it with the throttle to try and get the car straightened out before he goes down to the far end of the racetrack through these quick lefts and rights, and then a little bit of a sprint into this final left-right chicane. I'd like to see that chicane being removed because it doesn't actually add an awful lot, and by having a straight run into this turn 8-9 sequence of corners, now Cabanestra right using in the curbs on the inside, but struggling with that understeer. We saw the car, and all Maximilian Buch can do is, again, the back end on this occasion stepping out. All Maximilian Buch can do is try and stay close enough at the same time not get trapped in getting too close to the back of the McLaren and having to back out of it sort of slightly strange lines that Maximilian Buch took coming through those penultimate corners onto the back straight.
Yeah, whether that was just to show his nose, I'm not
Strange
sure.
place to do it.
But will we see the Bentley then? Well, we won't on this lap, and not really next time around either. But the Bentley may be one that pits early just to get some clear air. Vincent Abril, a quick peddler. As Albert von Turnen Taxis has a chat with Hans Reiter. That's the man who's going to be taking over the leading car. Looking forward to it, I think.
I'll tell you what, I mean, what a great facial expression he has, or expressions he has. So let's have a look and see if Maxi Buch can continue this work out of Kevin Estre and the McLaren. The McLaren appearing to suffer in bits of this leg down to the far end of the racetrack with understeer. I mean, notice it here, particularly the car was struggling to get in. Again, it's understeer, then oversteer, and it's sort of, it doesn't look comfortable, but having said that, Kevin Estre really uses a car hard, and as long as he's in control, then he can maintain his position. But he knows that if the Bentley were to get past, that's adios the Bentley.
Yep, absolutely. So 1 minute till the pit stop window opens. We're still on board with Maximilian Buch then chasing as we come down through these left and right sequences.
I mean, it really is a roller coaster. You just see you're out of one corner, and immediately it's another commitment, and a big commitment into the next corner. So the ability to change direction, apart from anything else, is probably as key to having a quick race car as it is to get it to turn in.
Race leader Nick Katzberg then in 88 coming down into the final turn. Then second place is the Rinaldi Ferrari, Norbert Siedler at the wheel at the moment. Then it's the third place battle, and HDP are getting ready. They can't bring him in this time around because they haven't got enough time out there. Now, and the other problem for Attempto is their pit stops haven't been particularly strong so far this season. They're new to the championship, and you can really make or lose time in the pit stops, and they've, in general, been losing time so far.
Without doubt, losing time is the easier of the two options, but already we're seeing that is this Craig Dolby coming into the Nissan
and
behind the Audi. Yeah. So Sean Walkinshaw will take over and will do the remaining 33 odd minutes as you go back to this battle for third place.
I think that might be Estre's line through there, because he's consistently missing that first apex.
It may be, but the car certainly looks like it really is on that knife edge.
Yeah.
So the Audi comes in first, and let's see whether the Nissan team can turn this, because they've had sort of intermittently good, poor pit stop times in previous events.
And this is the gap from second to third. Wait for it. There they come. So
well, the McLaren has dropped back quite a lot from that second place Ferrari.
Certainly has, and that's what has allowed Buch to close in so rapidly. Again, differing lines as they come down through 12. Pit stop window is open now, so I mean, if you're McLaren, you've got to cover off Bentley, haven't you? You've got to come into the pits now. Well, I don't know. It's a difficult one.
I would think that if anybody's going to come in, it's got to be Maximilian Buch. I mean, right now looking, you say Kevin Estre's going to come in because he's driving down the left-hand side of the straight, as is Maximilian Buch, and it looks like one is going to cover the other off indeed, and they are both coming into the same time. So this may be a positional change, not on the racetrack, but in the pit lane itself. And also the BMW coming in as well, so that's fairly predictable.
Winkelhock in too.
Really a lot, half the field now may be deciding this is the chance they want. So Maximilian Buch in, and Vincent Abril takes over. So who's going to get out first?
That's going to be the question. You'd think
the Bentley.
Oh yeah, because I think there's problems there at the rear right. That seemed a bit slow to me. I think the Bentley's going to take this and take third position quite comfortably.
Well, it's out and rolling, and there it goes past the McLaren. The McLaren still up on the edge, Jack.
Still got another tyre to
the left
go.
front wall of disaster. BMW past them as well. Yeah. So Rob Bell's got a big act now to try and recover two last positions as a consequence of a disappointing pit stop.
Yeah.
But it's not all lost. You know, it's easy for us to sit in the commentary booth and cast assertions on what teams do and don't do. It doesn't mean automatically that Vincent Abril is now going to be a solid third place for the remainder of this race.
But it is a shame for Rob Bell in that McLaren as he rejoins the circuit. Race leader stays out again. You can tell Sean's in the car now.
It's Sean Walkinshaw, because yet again, I mean, I don't know how you're doing this with ABS brakes, but we noticed that in qualifying that he's locking the front brake coming into this final turn, and he does it again on his out lap.
And it's only Walkinshaw that's doing it. Dolby's not having that problem. It's only Sean Walkinshaw who's locking up the brakes a bit. They keep turning up the ABS as well, and it's still not doing anything. Now, here's the battle. Frank Stippler up against the 77 car of Attila Abreu. Coming down into the final corner. Is Abreu close enough for a lunge? No, he's not. These two yet to make their pit stops.
And if he had made that lunge, he'd have been sort of out of position in the corner, and the BMW would have been able to make the undercut. So that's the downside. You really have to be fair and square alongside the car, and then you can control the corner from the inside, and the car that you've overtaken, you compromise on the exit deliberately. So, but that wasn't going to be the case this particular time.
So 31 minutes to go. Through 3, up into 4, the double apex right, left I should say, and then dropping down the hill through 5. And the 77 BMW squad still waiting out there. Surprised they didn't pit to try and get a little bit of running in clear air, but they've obviously decided to keep Attila Abreu out there for as long as possible, maybe hoping that it'll work the other way and that the 4 Audi will come in first.
Well, they did bring in the other car, the Jimenez car came in early, so again Sean, a big lock up again. You can hear it this time.
Yeah.
Albon, Verturnen, Taxis.
In comes Norbert Siegler. 333 Rinaldi Ferrari enters the pits.
So that'll be Marco Seefried that will take the car over. Again, there's been a clean, clear run for the Ferrari. Delighted to see this car running at the front as it ought to have been doing in a number of events, but unfortunately we saw Nzolder got tagged at the start in the opening lap by the Bentley, and of course at the 6 hours at Paul Ricard, also a victim of an opening lap incident.
So now we are seeing Attila Abreu come into the pits to hand over to Valdeno Brito. So coming out from the back of the number 4 WRT Audi of Frank Stippler to try and get a leapfrog in the pit lane. And he comes, knocks over his marker, and the mechanics get to work. Very often the winners of the pit stop challenge, the Brazilian BMW mechanics, very, very quick.
Well, the key to one of these things is not bringing your car in too tight. They've marked out precisely in the pit lane where they want this car to stop, but it did stop pretty much. I thought maybe it was a little bit close to the pit wall itself, but that was my view and it was wrong. So the Ferrari back out on track.
And there's actually, that Bentley's closed in.
Well, it had a good pit stop, and you know, Vincent Abril behind the wheel has used that opportunity. So they are going to be in a position on this opening lap, as Marco Seefried will be getting up to speed. Vincent Abril has got the benefit of having done one flying lap as the Lamborghini race leader, and Nicky Katzberg in the pit lane.
Okay, so into the pits comes our race leader. Also worth pointing out, 77 managed to get past Marcus Winkelhock in the pits. So Valdeno Brito now ahead of Marcus Winkelhock, whereas that car was behind when the pit stop window opens. But in comes our race leader then, Nick Katzberg, to hand over to Albert von Turnen Taxis.
The Dutchman slightly slow in getting out, just the radio attachments. Albert, a bigger, physically larger man, but he's very nimble, and in he gets. Nicky Katzberg helps with the lap strap, crutch belts, and then ultimately the 2 shoulder straps.
So here's our second place Ferrari.
And where's the Bentley? Well, the Bentley is certainly within a second. Oh, and a good pit stop for the Ryder team. To me, that looked like it could be good enough to see Albert von Turnen Taxis get out pretty much with maybe a bigger advantage over the second place Ferrari than before these round of pit stops began.
Possibly. It's quite a long way that they've got to go down the pit lane. That's Ryder Engineering Lamborghini, but out they come. So there's the race leader, Albert von Turnen Taxis.
Oh, he's got a massive advantage.
Yeah.
There's the Ferrari. I mean, it's almost tripled the advantage. So that was a really outstanding pit stop by the Ryder team to get the Lamborghini in the service. Driver change, Nicky Katzberg sitting along beside Hans Ryder, and they're looking content, almost smug.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to say it, but you know, sitting back. You know, it's a bit like going to the beach, sitting in the beach, you know, the old sea wall, swinging your legs, and isn't it great to be by the seaside, beside the sea?
I'm not quite sure what's happening here. Max van Splunteren has come out behind Marcus Winkelhock then. The only man we haven't seen pit yet is Frank Stippler, I don't think. So he must be pitting this time around to hand over to James Nash. And that'll tell us whether the 77 BMW Team Brazil car is passed or not. But now the question becomes that of pace of Albert von Turnentaxis leading the way. Christopher Mies has come in now to hand over to Enzo Eid. There's our race leader, Albert von Turnentaxis.
So all we just need to keep is an eye on the gap. The lead, I would have assumed at the end of this lap, the first flying lap for the Lamborghini, it looked to me to be 6 to 8 seconds, so I would say. But the Marco Seefried has got to be aware that Vincent Abril not that far behind, and we know that the Bentley is light-ish on its tyres, probably one here in the Russian raceway.
Katzberg comes across the line, and when the Rinaldi car comes through, we'll see how far back it is. 37, so yeah, 9 seconds further back down the road. Stippler, meanwhile, must be in the pits. There comes, Enzo Eid coming out just in front of one of the first of the Brazilian BMWs. There's Stippler coming out, and James Nash now at the wheel, and they're coming out behind the 77 car. So that's worked out well for them. This is the battle now between Cacabueno and Enzo Eid.
Enzo on his outlap and a little bit sort of getting a feel for the car. Of course, everybody ran in their qualifying laps much earlier when the track temperatures were much lower, and of course the cars in a sense were slightly fresher, having had an evening rebuild and taking sort of chunks of the apex through these tight lefts and rights at the far end of the racetrack. Now you can see again the very slight incline as you make your way back, this right then again back to the left, and then the final right that takes you on to the straight. This is where the BMW, if it's got any opportunity to make a move on, and this is down the far end of the racetrack, but it's going to win a back end of the Audi, looking a little bit uncomfortable for Enzo Eid. So now, if the BMW's got anything in the tank, this is where he's going to have to play it out. He ought to have been quicker off that penultimate corner, and he is marginally closing down, but Enzo's going defensive up the inside, so stay on the outside, hang out, and then see if you can do something. But he brakes early and gets better into the corner, gets on the throttle, but any advantage he thought he may have had has gone.
And this is the battle over 4th position then, so they've done a really good job, Christopher Mies, staying out as long as possible, and his pace has given that WRT squad 4th position. So it's Albert von Turnentaxis who leads for Reiter, Marco Seefried 2nd for Rinaldi Ferrari, then 3rd is Vincent Abril in the HDB Bentley, 4th is Enzo Eid, 5th is Cacabueno, 6th is Rob Bell, 7th Valdeno Brito, 8th Marcus Winkelhock, 9th Max van Splunteren, and 10th is James Nash.
And of course we haven't mentioned the number 1 Audi since that opening lap, and it came in, obviously got tagged on the right rear in turn 1 on the opening lap, and
it's in the pits, I think.
Still in the pits, so that car's race obviously has been postponed until we get into the main race later this afternoon. But a lot of work indeed for Laurens van Thoren, Robin Vriends to try and claw back anything. I suppose the bonus that they've got is that they've been dominant in all the rounds so far outside of Nogaro in the Blancpain sprint.
Great sound from the Lamborghini as it comes down towards the final corner with Albert von Turnentaxis at the wheel, and this will be our first chance to get a look at his lap times. Meanwhile, Marcus Winkelhock is trying to put Valdeno Brito under pressure in front of him, and that is the battle over 7th position. So we've got 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th and 11th all in the one straight here, and this is the battle over 4th position. On that last lap, Marco Seefried was about a 10th and a half quicker than Albert von Turnentaxis in front of him, so Albert's driving very well out there.
Yeah, I think we've seen a big step forward in terms of ability and consistency from the German, who now actually happens to live in Rome, and his principally the consistency He's always had speed, but it was an inconsistent speed. So that's coming together, and with Nicky Katzberg, they're forming a very powerful partnership, in particular with these sprint races.
Very deep there from Caca Bueno. As a result, he's dropped back quite a bit from the rear of Enzo Eads' WRT R8 in front. In the battle for 4th position, into 7 and 8. Through this long left-hander. So championship-wise, I mean, there's not that many points available, but this is good news for the 333 Ferrari and, of course, the 88 Lamborghini, but the real championship challengers are way down the order. 7th for the second place man in the championship, 16th at the moment for Van Thor and Freitz, and they're out of the race. So this weekend really could spice up the championship depending on what happens in the main race later on today.
And just interesting watching that scene that Vincent Abril, who at one point was looking like a serious threat to second place, has dropped back. You can see quite a lot of understeer coming through the final turn. The Bentley, the left, the right front. Not really at an angle that's going to make your life particularly comfortable. So Marco Seefried has been able to consolidate comfortably that second place, and in fact the gap opening up.
And Albert von Turnentaxis extended his lead by half a second last time around. He has won races in the past. He's won a race with Thomas Enger in the German GT Championship. Won in the FIA GT3 European Championship as well a couple of years ago when he was teammates actually with Nicky Meyer-Melnoff. You can see that the Bentley is closing in, but to a point where it doesn't matter.
Well, the improvements are very marginal, but in fact, on the previous lap, on the previous 2 laps, the gap had extended in favour of the Ferrari. So I mean, we can't say it was due to traffic because they're not really in lap traffic context at the minute. So just because of that loss of position time-wise, difficult to really understand unless it was a driver manoeuvre that took him slightly off track, that saw the gap between second and third extend from where it really was, which was little more than a second.
Enzo E doing a good job in the number 2 WRT Audi, 4th place for him, resisting the attacks of Caca Bueno, and they're both still just ahead of Rob Bell in the Attempto Racing McLaren 2 heading down the back straight. He drives in the middle of the road. Brake lights flashing well before the corner, so I don't know if that's just him kind of hovering his foot over it, or...
It sounds like he might have his foot just sort of not quite off. He's still on the throttle, but his foot's just on the... So, I mean, sometimes a driver will actually hit the brake pedal to ensure that there is a brake, but that's as if his foot's actually tremoring on the brake pedal. He's not even probably aware that he's doing it.
Yeah. So less than 20 minutes to go. And Albert von Turnentaxis leads the qualifying race here in Moscow. The main race is coming up later on.
Interesting how much less road Caca Bueno needs than the Audi does. Again, it's just he can't find a way around Enzo Eid and the Audi to look to move forward in terms of his position on the track. The BMW clearly on a lap is the quicker of the 2 cars, and actually Enzo Eid is beginning to struggle more because the pace of the Audi is falling away, and the McLaren behind, which had been running in 3rd place, and now this is Sean Walkinshaw dives down the inside. Well, that's the first pass I've seen on that part of the racetrack. That was courageous. That's at the very far end. Gets the Nissan down the inside again with that smoke pouring from the front brakes as he locks up the front wheels.
And that's 13th place now for Walkinshaw as he passed Alexei Vasiliev. This has all let the 55 McLaren of Rob Bell into the fight as well. So it's a 3-way battle over 4th place. Then a bit of a gap back to the battle over 7th place between Valdeno Brito and Marcus Winkelhock. Gap at the front remains at 9.2 seconds, as there has been for a couple of laps now.
And I think what is indicative here is it's as much the pace of Rob Bell as right now the lack of pace from the 4th place Audi, because what Enzo Eid is doing is hanging on as best he... The strength the Audi have got to keep the BMW and now the McLaren that's joining into a 2-way battle, into a 3-way battle behind.
on board with Vincent Abril, 0.2 of a second slower than Marco Seefried on that last lap. Seefried running in second place. And apparently Lawrence Vanthor was just in the Bentley garage having a word with them. So whether it was a collision with one of the Bentleys up at the start, which I guess would make sense because the Bentleys, well, were the row behind the Audis, so...
Or he might simply be interested in buying a ragtop Bentley Continental, do a bit of cruising in around Brussels, you never know.
No, you don't, that's very true. 16 minutes to go. We're back on board with Caca Bueno. Still trying to find a way past Enzo Eid.
Again, the Audi, you can just see the back of the car almost, but not quite to the point of getting away from the young Belgian driver. Again, Caca Bueno is close, but not sufficiently close to get any toe down the straight, and Enzo Eid comes down pretty much in the middle. So if you decide to have a punt, again, look at the brake, his foot just sort of literally just hovering on the brake pedal before he gets on the brakes proper. And Caca Bueno probably as close at this point in the final turn as he's been at any point since he's taken over the wheel of the BMW. But of course the Audi gets on the throttle a little bit earlier and consequently is able to pull away, and the seesaw between who's last on the brakes and who's first on the throttle just continues.
Yep, just 0.4 of a second between these two. The battle over fourth position.
It's Rob Bell. I'm just when you see the McLaren, he's sort of playing, I can't say it's a waiting game, but I don't know whether he wants to get himself any closer than he is, as the Audi all over the shop coming through these tight corners. You know, it's never going to get any better, so just all you can do is hang on and try not to be forced into doing more than you know the car is capable of. Takes loads of the curb on the inside, kicks up the dust into the face of Caca Bueno.
How frustrating is it if you're following a driver who's, you know, clearly hasn't got a car handling that well, missing the apexes, but you still can't get past?
Well, he's not going to be on your Christmas card list, I can assure you of that. I mean, it is a frustration, but that's motor racing. You know, if it was the other way around, Caca Bueno no doubt would be defending as Enzo Eid is, so it's as long as he's not gaining an advantage or he's doing something that is perceived to be detrimental. And now Caca Bueno in a good position.
Oh, and he's got the overlap on the inside line. Great drive out from Caca Bueno. He's up into fourth place. Will Enzo Eid fight back as they come down towards the final corner? The Brazilian BMW up into fourth. Gets on the brakes for the final turn, and Eid tries to take a wide line in and then swing out, but I don't think he's going to be close enough.
But watch Rob Bell. Rob Bell's the one that can also maybe down into turn one, but thinks the more of it because the Audi has realised there's a chance he could lose 2 places in the space of, what, 3 corners.
Really well there, Caca Bueno, to get the overlap coming out of the corner. The drive off the corner was the key.
It was, and that was part of that was also the fact that the Audi handling is gradually deteriorating, but he caught Enzo Eid off guard. He didn't actually expect that manoeuvre to come, and by the time it was mid-execution, he was too late to do anything about it. Now he's got a car with a mirror full of a McLaren, so he's had yellow, now he's got black and white. As Rob Bell, who had that disappointing pit stop, took a long time to get I think it was the left front changed, so he is now going to give Enzo Eid another workout with just 13.5 minutes to go.
The Brazilian BMW started in 10th and 15th respectively, and they're now running in 4th and 7th, so that they really seem to have, whatever the problems they had in qualifying, they seem to have sorted out now.
Well, it's not good enough to bring the Caipirinhas out, but you know, it's still good enough to think.
I think it is.
It's a good enough position to start the main race from, and with that, particularly at the start, if you can get track position, you can make up a few spots. Just avoiding contact is the ultimate key.
Albert von Turnen Taxis continues to lead the way here in Moscow in the 88. Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, and he's still extending his gap over Marco Seefried in second place. This is one of the most impressive performances I've seen from Albert von Turnen Taxis, has to be said. 9.6 seconds his gap. The Bentley has closed in a little bit, so just 4 seconds behind, but still quite far. Here's a look from Marcus Winkelhock. Not close enough. He's trying to pass Valdeno Brito for 7th position.
Well, in terms of straight line speed, the advantage should go marginally to Audi. But again, it's the speed off these low speed corners that lead on to the quickest part of the racetrack where the BMW is that little bit better. So watching Rob Bell, we noticed when Kevin Estre was behind in driving this car 55, he seemed to have a lot of understeer, and Rob Bell seems to also be suffering from that, which is a frustration to him, because at the point in the circuit where he really wants to try and get right under the rear wing of the Audi, he can't do it. He's just having to check the throttle every time. And he's taking lumps. I mean, he's taking massive turfs. Yeah. I got it right this time. Out of the racetrack in defense of his 4th position.
It's 5th place now for Enzo Eid once after Caca Bueno got past. But he really is having to defend for all he's worth. Marcus Winkelhock there at the back of the pack, doing the whole race himself. He'll get no points, but his teammate Nicky Meyer-Melnhoff unfortunately had to return this morning for family reasons. As they come out, goodness me, an awful lot of dust being kicked up, presumably from Enzo Eid, as we have 11 minutes to go, and this is the battle over 5th place that's keeping us all entertained here in Moscow. A little, again, just driving down the inside line is Winkelhock to try and cool the car, get out of the air of the car in front, and also just to show his nose.
Well, he's certainly, I mean, he's coming off the corner and going right back out into the clean air. Now, if that's a heating problem, whether it be overheating brakes, he may have a long brake pedal. So that's the reason why you might come out, or simply just the ambient temperatures and the temperature of the engine is such that he needs to get a little bit of cool air in. As we see Caca Bueno back onto the tail, or on the tail, I should say, not Caca Bueno. That's
it was,
Rob Bell opened up an opportunity.
And he's got past.
He's got past.
Up into turn 4, really opportunistic move, but Rob Bell holds the position for the time being, because it was 2 right-hand kinks that followed, but that was ambitious stuff from Valdeno Brito.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost as if your focus is on the car ahead of you, and you forget that there's a car behind you that's about to challenge. So there was an opportunity. Valdeno Brito did the right thing. Rob Bell was able to consolidate and maintain his position. So look, Marcus Winkelhock also fancies a bit of the BMW, and it'll be down the straight. We've got to get through these last few sequence of corners. So the Audi close enough and challenging enough to see if we can get away past the 77 BMW of Valdeno Brito.
Drive-through penalty for car 75, Marco Bononomi in the ISR Audi for exceeding track limits at a couple of points on the circuit, most notably down at turn 1. 9.5 minutes to go. 4-way queue over 5th place. Eid, Bell, Brito, Winkelhock, and then actually Max van Splunteren and Stefan Rakelmi are coming into the fight as well. As again, a look to the inside from Winkelhock just to get out of the air of the car in front, it seems.
Well, as Enzo Eid has had a difficult task, and he's done it pretty well, only letting one car get through, and now he's having this defense with the McLaren to go back to race leader. And really a lovely drive all afternoon so far for the Ryder Engineering Lamborghini. Nicky Katzberg doing the business, but really I think that's superb pit stop to service the car, driver change 4 wheels and tires, and get back out again, and in fact benefit from that pit stop to give Albert von Turner Taxis a lovely cushion of around about 9 seconds.
We could be seeing Ryder Engineering's first win since Zolder 2 years ago. They come out onto the back straight. 8 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. And there's the gap back to Marco Seefried in second, and the Bentley behind is dropping back now, I think, Vincent Abril. I think they're pretty much settled, the top 3.
Yeah, and I think Marco Seefried, I mean, as much as the gap has come down by a 10th here, a 10th there, the reality is this is Ryder Lamborghini's race to lose, and all the Ferrari can do is just maintain their second place. Great opportunity to start. It'll be on the outside of the grid, which sometimes sees you being squeezed out on the exit into turn 1. Nevertheless, it's better to start on the front row of the grid, in my opinion, than start on the second row.
Yep, absolutely. Again, Winkelhock pulling out. 7.5 minutes left, and it's all calmed down a little bit in this battle over 5th. That move, that attack from Valdeno Brito has kind of taken the momentum out of everybody. And Rob Bell is trying to close back up to Enzo Eid, but at the moment isn't having much success. Eid in the number 2 WRT Audi. And still Winkelhock is right up behind Brito now. So Brito, from being on the attack, is now on the defense.
And remember, Marcus Winkelhock has driven this race as a solo drive because teammate Nicky Meyer-Melnoff had to return back to his family home. And fresh as anybody out there, you have to say. Very good.
Yep, tough hot conditions here, well, about 30 degrees.
You know, the Audi, their training program over the winter months, they take all their contracted drivers and put them through all sorts of torture. But that's the benefit of it, because their condition is such that in the event that they have to do something like this, they've got the physical and mental capacities. But look, Marcus Winkelhock thinks, I've got one more possibility with just 6.5 minutes
he's going to
remaining.
nose to the inside there at Brito, out into the final corner. Not quite close enough, but now they're absolutely nose to tail, heading down the back straight. Enzo Eid is starting to get closed in again by Rob Bell. Down towards the final corner. And Winkelhock isn't going to be close enough again this time. He looks to the inside line. Again, not quite doing. But he's looking racy now, Marcus. The run down to turn 1. And it was while being on the outside that he got caught up in the incident at the first corner in this qualifying race. 5.5 minutes to go. Enzo Eid has a 0.8 of a second advantage over Rob Bell at the moment. Stefan Rakelmi still pushing hard to get past Max van Splunteren in 9th position. As they dive up through 7 and 8. You can see Winkelhock has just been closing in the gap a little on the BMW in front, but they're nose to tail anyway. This is all allowed Enzo Eid to head away. As John makes his way down now to Parc Fermé. Nice big slide from Winkelhock on the exit of the corner there. Here's our 3rd place car, Vincent Abril. A good run from him at the moment, has to be said. And there's his teammate Maxi Buch. I think they'll be reasonably satisfied with a 3rd place. Now, are we going to see any movement this time around? Where's Marcus Winkelhock gone? Look, he's right back there. So problems for Marcus Winkelhock. He's dropped right back where he was challenging for 6th position. Here's what happened. Oh, he's lost it all by himself. Lost it all by himself, coming up into the left-hander. And that's a real shame for Marcus. Maybe the fatigue getting to him, although, you know, they're used to doing 1 hour races and stints in the Blancpain Endurance Series, so it's not outrageous for Winkelhock, but then in 5th, it's 6th for Rob Bell still, and that promotes this battle up to 1/8. The big wide HTP Bentley of Max van Splunteren, the young Dutch racer, son of Paul van Splunteren. He is now trying to hold on to take 7th place. Sorry, 8th place in this qualifying race. But here's our race leader, Albert von Turnhen-Taxis. What a really superb performance from Albert. You expect it from Nick Katzberg, but von Turnhen-Taxis has really come a long way as a driver since he started racing in the GT3 European Championship alongside Nicky Meyer-Melnhof. Down into 3. He's looked calm, he's looked composed, he's kept the gap as well. Really strong stuff from the Ryder Engineering Lamborghini pair. And a victory here could put them into, I mean, well, maybe not quite championship contention, but if they can win the main race as well later on, then it could be very interesting. So these drivers that are out there now will be the ones starting the main race. So that 333 Rinaldi Ferrari will be starting the main race in second position if it can just hold on for the remaining laps. We're on the penultimate lap of the race now. Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler, who had a second place in the qualifying race at Zolder. That's their best performance so far this season. Then in third place, Maximilian Buch and Vincent Abril. Again, they'll be reasonably happy with the podium. Their third podium in a row and their third podium of the season. It was a difficult weekend for them in Brands Hatch, not entering after a crash in free practice. But look how close Rob Bell is now as they start the final lap of the race in that battle over fifth position. Rob Bell is going to really push Enzo Eid on this closing lap. No doubt about that. Just to try and get up into that fifth place, which again will give him the inside line for the run down to turn one on the grid. And still, now Valdeno Brito doesn't have the distraction of Marcus Winkelhock behind him. He is starting to close in a little more. But on the final lap is Albert von Turnhen-Taxis. He's just got one more corner to go. He's never won in the Blancpain Series, Albert von Turnhen-Taxis, but he's coming down the back straight now. Just one more turn to go. And Reiter Engineering are going to win for the first time in a couple of years. Through the left-hander comes Albert von Turnhen-Taxis. He and Nick Katzberg take victory in Moscow. Great performance from Katzberg to seal pole position and then take the victory. Second place across the line for the Rinaldi team, and third across the line for Max Buch and Vincent Abril, finishing in third place. Down to the final corner is the battle for fifth. Enzo Eid's going to hold on. Fourth across the line is Caca Bueno and Sergio Jimenez. Fifth is Enzo Eid and Christopher Mies. Sixth for the McLaren, seventh for the 77 Brazilian BMW. But there are the celebrations for the Reiter Engineering crew. They can't last very long because they've got to race again in not too long at all. 3:45 and it's now 2 o'clock, so there's 2 hours until the main race starts. Norbert Siedler, he'll be heading up to the podium now. There's Caca Bueno. Good drive from them to go from 10th up to 4th, and that's going to put them in a strong position for the main race later on today. But there's Albert von Turnhen-Taxis, really looking forward to hearing from him. John Watson is down there, poised in the Parc Fermé. But the winner of the Blancpain Sprint Series qualifying race here in Moscow, Albert von Turnhen-Taxis and Nick Katzberg. As far as the championship is concerned then, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference, but Valdeno Brito and Attila Abreu will close in slightly. No, they won't, because they finished 7th, didn't they? So they won't close in at all. Bueno and Jimenez will pick up a couple of points, but in general, which will move them actually past Raquelme and Ortelli, so they'll move up into 3rd place in the standings. But the big news is that they will be in a strong position for the main race later on. There's the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini pulling in to its position. And there's our race winner, Albert von Turnen Taxis and Nick Katzberg. Really strong drive from Albert. And congratulations there from Norbert Siedler. And John is poised. As soon as Albert takes off his helmet, we should be getting a word with him as he poses for the photographs and celebrates with the team. First win in Blancpain. Congratulations from Hans Reiter. And it was the 2013 FIA GT Series, the last time that Reiter Engineering took victory. That was with Stefan Rosina and Peter Cox at Zandvoort. But now they've won again here. And there's Max Buch and Vincent Abril, a 3rd place finish. But let's hear from our race winners, Nick Katzberg and Albert von Turnen Taxis. They're talking to John Watson after winning the qualifying race here in Moscow.
Nicky Katzberg, would it be wrong to call that a bit of a Nick and Al show?
Yeah, it was definitely a good show today. I mean, I had a good start, good stint, and then Albert did perfect job. He maintained the gap, and very, very nice victory for us. It took us a while, and now we are up to speed, and the guys have to be careful for race 2.
Albert, the team did a brilliant pit stop, but you did a brilliant job behind the wheel. That's got to be as good as I've ever seen you drive.
Well, that's very kind. It's not so difficult to drive if one has served the lead like that by his partner. I have to say I'm really completely stoked by how good the car was, especially in the deteriorating conditions. The temperatures were quite hot now, and it was just a smooth drive. It was not difficult for me to bring the car home, and I'm just so grateful, so grateful after a series of very difficult years, you can say. This is a wonderful result.
Well, I think everybody's fully appreciative. Well done, guys. See you later.
Thank you.
Victory for Albert von Turnen Taxis, and a really strong performance from them. There's Max Buch and Vincent Abril, and they are in 3rd place then. There's Renaud Dufour coming up and just to congratulate them. And they're in the 2nd place. Oh no, that's the other Bentley squad. Max van Splunteren. So now let's hear from our 2nd place drivers, Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler. They are talking to John Watson.
Norbert Siedler, the Ferrari was quick, and it didn't get hit either. Nobody bumped into you, but not quite quick enough to catch the Lamborghini.
Yeah, they did a great job. The Lamborghini was really fast today, but we will try again. We have another race in 2 hours, and we will fight, and maybe at the end we will be on the top. But hopefully the Bentley will not hit us like it was in Zolder. But yeah, Marco did a great job, all the team, thanks, and Abby Bush in the 2nd race.
So Marco, the Ferrari will be starting in the front row of the grid, but on the outside, and everybody dives to the inside. Is that going to help you or not?
I hope so. I mean, now we have the same position and the same grid order than at Zolder. So as Norbert just mentioned, the Bentley is behind us, so we will be really aware. And I try to be more smart, even more smart than we tried at Zolder, and survive the first lap, or especially the first corner.
Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
Where are the Bentleys? Where are the Bentleys?
So it was 2nd place in Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried in Zolder, and then they started in 2nd place and got hit. So, and it sounds like the 3rd place drivers have gone to the podium already. So let's have a look at the results. It's the race win for the 88 Reiter Engineering Lamborghini, Albert von Turnen and Nick Katzberg. 2nd place for Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler, Vincent Abril and Max Buch in 3rd there. Good drive from Bueno and Jimenez from 10th to 4th. Same can be said of Brito and Abreu from 4th 14th up to 7th. Max van Splunderen and Jules Simkowiak winning the Silver Cup. Marcus Winkelhock completing the top 10 after his spin. And Rob Bell and Kevin Estra slightly disappointed by finishing down there. And then we had our 2 retirements. The championship leaders, the number 1 WRT Belgian Audi squad, Laurens van Thor and Robin Freitz, getting mixed up in the incidents at the first turn. Szorzycki and Hammond, the other retirements. So, what an entertaining race here in Moscow, but we've got another one to come in just 2 hours' time. That's when we'll be getting the main race underway. And Robin Freitz and Laurens van Thor will be hoping for a much stronger performance that time around. There's the podium, overlooking the grandstand here. And we are about to have the drivers heading out onto it with any luck. The first podium of the day, the first of a couple. This one-day format making it really busy for the teams and drivers. But great performance from Albert von Thurn in Taxis, and Nick Katzberg currently down in 10th place in the standings is Albert. Assembled. But it is going to be a real sight to see Albert on the top step of the podium. He and Nick Katzberg together.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
So it looks like we're good to go for the podium presentation. So Albert von Thurn and Taxis and Nick Katzberg head out onto the podium, and it's the top step for Reiter Engineering in Moscow. Second place for Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried for the Rinaldi Ferrari team. And completing the podium, Maximilian Boot and Vincent Abril for the HTP Bentley team. A good performance from them, but they will want to do better than that come the main race later on. There's Thomas from the Reiter Engineering crew up there on the podium as well. But celebrations for Reiter, and the German national anthem will play. But first of all, there's the Silver Cup winners. And that's the second 83 Bentley HTP, Max van Splunderen and Jules Simkowiak. And the Pro-Am winners as well, I think, are about to head out up there. Alexei Karachev. There is Alexei Karachev. Along with him, Christophe Bouchou. So there are all our winners from this first qualifying race of the day. As I say, the main race coming up in now less than 2 hours' time. And now it's the German national anthem. So the German national anthem plays out here in Russia for German Albert von Turn Taxis, Dutchman Nick Katzberg. There you can see Maximilian Buch and Vincent Abril taking their third place trophies. Hugo de Silva there, the Blancpain event manager, handing out the trophy for second place. And I think there's been a bit of a trophy mix-up there. So then there's the third place ones for Max Buch and Vincent Abril. But it's the top step of the podium for Albert von Turn Taxis and Nicky Katzberg. Reiter Engineering on the podium once again as well. And then the Silver Cup trophies handed out to Max van Splunteren and Jules Simkowiak. And Pro-Am for Alexei Karachev and Christophe Bouchou. So great performance from all of our drivers, and the Blancpain watch as well, going the way of the winning team Reiter. So Albert von Turn Taxis and Nick Katzberg take victory in the qualifying race. It'll be pole position for them for the main race later on today. And I don't think they'll do any champagne spraying because they'll want to keep their clothes dry for their race again later on. Well, the champagne's coming, so we'll see whether they decide to spray it or not. That'll be the question. Yeah, they're going to. Albert can't get his open. Come on, Albert. You can tell he's not that used to winning in Blancpain. There he goes. Superb stuff from Albert von Turn Taxis on top of the podium. That was a very definitive aim from Albert, wasn't it? And that is going to be a very smelly race later on this afternoon. But it's the top step of the podium for Albert and Nick Katzberg after what was an entertaining race here in Moscow. And they'll be out to do it all again in a couple of hours' time. So now the drivers make their way out the back. They'll head over to the press conference in the media centre, which is just down the corridor. And there go Katzberg and von Turn Taxis, our race winners here. And Hugo de Silva congratulating them. A really strong drive, and a really strong drive from von Turn Taxis too, you have to say. Katzberg did the work at the beginning, building up the advantage, but von Turn Taxis held the advantage, in fact extended the advantage. So that is the championship points as it stands now, and it's Robin Freitz and Laurens Vanthoor still top of the championship. Abril and Maximilian Buch there in fourth place. So they're still behind Stefan Rakelmi and Stefan Ortelli in the championship battle. But it'll be Ortelli and Rakelmi who then close in on Attila Abreu and Valdeno Brito. But next up, we're going to have the main race. Make sure you join us. There's only an hour and a half until we go on air for the main race here in Moscow. See you then. Here's a look back at the highlights of the Blancpain Sprint Series qualifying race here in Moscow. It was Nick Katzberg on pole position. At the start, it all got a little bit busy, and Markus Winkelhock from second on the grid was shuffled down the order. The Ferrari managed to make up places. Winkelhock was then shuffled down more as Jules Simkowiak slid into the side of the number 6 Phoenix Audi. The big news out of all of this, though, was that the championship-leading number 1 WRT had to retire from the race after contact at the start. There were great battles throughout the order as Winkelhock came under pressure from behind. Sergio Jimenez had a good first stint, getting the car from 10th up to 5th, and that would later become 4th by the end of the race. The dust being kicked up there through the left-hander of turn 8. Vincent Abril getting ready to take over, and there was a moment for Craig Dolby, and then into the pit lane. They had a really strong performance in the end, and as did the number 55 McLaren. They had a problem with their front left, and that meant that they lost a number of positions. In came the race leaders, and out eventually went the McLaren, and Albert von Turnentaxis there looking pretty excited to take over. He did take over. That was a good move from Sean Walkinshaw, forcing his way past Alexei Vasiliev. The number 6 car of Markus Winkelhock was sliding around and ended up sliding a little bit too much, but no one could stop Albert von Turnentaxis, who was extending his advantage up at the front. The battle was on behind for 4th and 5th positions. Enzo Eid would lose out to the 0 BMW. That was Markus Winkelhock spinning right at the last closing couple of laps. But it was Albert von Turnentaxis and Nicky Katzberg who came through the final corner to take the checkered flag and to take their first win of the season. And von Turnentaxis and Katzberg actually their first win in the Blancpain Sprint Series. Second place for Norbert Siedler and Marco Seefried, but absolute delight in Parc Fermé for Albert von Turnentaxis and Nick Katzberg. They embrace each other and were over the moon, and they're going to be starting on pole position for the main race, which is coming up a little bit later on. Second place for Marco Seefried and Norbert Siedler. You can see the congratulations there. But third place for Maximilian Buch and Vincent Abril is just what they need as they try and get their championship challenge back on track this weekend here in Moscow. So, wonderful performance from Albert von Turnentaxis and Nick Katzberg. They take victory in the qualifying race here at Moscow Raceway.